This is The Art of Startup War, and I am your sensei, Brian McMahon. Now, in Season 1 and 2, I got inside the minds of startup investors. In Season 3, I brought in entrepreneurs to share their startup journey. Here, in Season 4, we combine both, so you can hear investors critique the investment value proposition of individual companies. You're going to hear how investors make decisions to invest in startups, what makes a great entrepreneur, and how billion-dollar companies are built. So tune in every Tuesday, 10 a.m. on all the major platforms. You can empower your tribe by sharing the podcast, and remember to subscribe, rate, review, and leave us a comment. Good morning. It's Tuesday morning. It's Brian. We're back. We're in the fridge. I'm here with my buddy Jeremy, and we're going to change the way advertising is done. It's just that simple. We're going to make sure that folks who are looking to monetize their product by getting awesome new customers are going to find them real easy. And we're going to make sure that folks who have got a bunch of social media following and are thinking, well, what the friggin' hell is the use of this if I can't make any money from it, are actually going to make some money. Is that fair, Jeremy?
That's right, baby.
That's where we begin today.
That's how we do it.
So look, we just shook hands, and I feel like we should have a hug or something.
We consummated today.
We are consummating today.
Yes.
There is a check from Expert Dojo to you with my love and appreciation and gratitude. And I think every deal should be a win-win deal, but I really feel like I won on this deal. I feel like I won on this deal because I got you in the cohort.
Yes, and I think what you're doing in general for the startup community here in not just Santa Monica, but LA and startups in general that are in need is absolutely A+.
Thanks, man.
Not only a lot of good stuff about you, but in general, it's hard, right? Raising money is really, really hard. And not only raising money is really, really hard. We have a functioning, operating company, clients on the platform today. So there's a really, really kind of sensitive balance of bringing in the right money with the right people that are going to get behind us. And the one thing that I can tell you I see for sure is you really do get behind your companies, and that's important to us.
I try. I think every year, like you, we're all startups in our own thing. I have access to some money, which means we invested in companies.
Right.
But every single year, we at Expert Dojo get better. Every single year, you and everybody in Rad gets better, right?
Absolutely.
That's what happens. The day we stop trying to improve is the day we die. I think what's important at the beginning is I care. I care about the folks in the cohort. I care if people succeed. I care if we make mistakes. I care if we get screwed over by outside people. Like, it's a big we. And it's very similar to how you are. And, you know, it's funny. I saying, I believe I win. I don't mean I believe I won because we got you in as a company. Just, I believe I won because we have you in as a company to benefit the other companies in the cohort.
Cool.
And I look at that as being, you saw the first thing I did. I passed you straight over to my missus. I'm like, I want folks, everybody to win. And if we just have people who are selling product all the time and we don't have other people in the ecosystem who are helping that sales process easier, it becomes a kind of an unbalanced scenario.
Yeah.
So I love having you in there because actually, tell everybody how you've created. So I'm going to go to your background afterwards, which I was super impressed with before, and I think has molded you the way that it's molded me as well.
Sure.
But talk a little bit about how you saw this market within Facebook and other social media as being one that's not necessarily broken, but it needed adapting and fixing.
Sure. So the genesis of everything is at my previous company, we built the business on influencer marketing for the first, let's call it like 18 months. All we did was influencer marketing. We were on destination pages and we were working with influencers, and it was working so good at the time that we just knew that it was working, but we could not really quantify it. We couldn't figure out attribution. That said, we knew we wanted more of it, and we were doing a lot of it.
So just to be clear, it wasn't an influencer company. You just used influencers to market your company because you knew that the influencers had higher fan engagement than just
school.
around old school.
Old school. So what I mean by old school is like we would literally get into Instagram, find pages, contact the influencers directly. We had a whole environment, and getting fluent in that process, you not only understand the dynamics of the way influencers work and don't work, but fundamentally you also understand there's lots of broken parts of the process. And these influencers, they have these profiles, but they don't really own their profiles. It's the illusion that they own their profiles. Facebook and Instagram actually own those profiles, and they've made it clear with the way they've prohibited or limited reach. So now the way Facebook and Instagram work is they give you a little sneak peek under the hood of what the engagement is going to be. And then they're basically saying, hey, this is what it's going to be. We'd love for you to put some paid media behind it. And Facebook was a little bit behind the curve from where Instagram was from an influencer environment. So what Facebook did in 2017 and 2018 is they put these branded content rules. And what they wanted is they wanted influencers to be on the platform, but they wanted to make sure that there was a handshake for several different reasons. Number one, disclosure. You're looking at the ad, you know there's a promotion going on behind it. But number two, behind the scenes, they want the money that can be attributed from those brand deals if they're going to use Facebook's reach, which further backs up that point that these profiles that influencers have on the platform, the illusion that they own their own profiles, that's not really the case.
Right.
Facebook owns or Instagram owns. Now, Facebook and Instagram have also made it clear that they are 100% conscious of this environment. They want to support this environment as long as they're getting their piece, right? So that's kind of the genesis. And the other part of this process that for us was always interested, and this is when we started buying lots of media on Facebook, is we would structure these deals where we would contract with an influencer, and then a part of that contract with the influencer is we would get editor access or advertiser access on the influencer's page. And then what we would do is we would put together the assets, we would push the media out, but we would push the media out from the influencer's page. And
the assets are the content, right?
Correct.
That's going out to their audience.
Okay. Correct, 100%. So now what you have is you have a commercial that the influencer is playing to their audience. And you can also run that commercial to people that are not in their audience. But the general idea is you're taking something that's contextually relevant, the brand's product, and you're playing that commercial to the influencer's audience, and you're pushing that out through the influencer's page. And we found that when we would operate our paid media through Facebook's Business Manager, we found that we would get significantly better results than just going through Business Manager as a standalone. Okay, so those are the two variables coming into Rad Intelligence. So at Rad, we started off on the content syndication side, but it was programmatic. In other words, we were taking content and we were syndicating it across programmatic publishers, which was in essence a different product.
Take us back a little bit. Just take us back a little bit.
Well, I'm going to give you the genesis.
Okay.
There's tons of brands and publishers and environments that are out there that there's tons of good content already exists. But what we also found is the programmatic world, in other words, publishers and websites that are selling inventory on their websites, we found that world is kind of dying on a vine. The content that you are clicking through doesn't convert as well, and people want that social content, right? So that product was working, but that market itself wasn't as interesting as what we're doing right now. And what happened is my old chief revenue officer, Nick DeCastro, his brother is a data scientist. He's now currently our chief operating officer. He was a CEO and founder of a company called Zumbi. And Zumbi had launched in Latin America. This is before Rad. They were about 2.5 years old. And it was a data scientist running the company as a CEO in Mark. Mm-hmm. A couple of really great engineers and kind of like an antiquated sales team, right? But the most exciting thing is what they were able to accomplish across 4 publishers in Latin America. They ran across 4 publishers at a $10 CPM.
What's a publisher?
Publisher is a website, TechCrunch, Huffington Post, any website. They ran across the 4 largest publishers in Latin America, and they outperformed Facebook Business Manager cost per click benchmarks by 8x, and they outperformed Google AdWords by 10x.
But how do they do that?
They did that by taking the audiences of influencers and putting that into a performance marketplace, and brands and publishers over here on the left-hand side could set the cost per impression to serve on these influencer pages.
So is the word just relevant content is incredibly important.
Relevancy, right? Facebook, it's not just relevancy, but it's relevancy, content velocity, and content recency.
Right.
Those 3 variables together, working together. But when I saw the results of this beta test that these guys did in Latin America, and they came to us, they had already shut down for 2 months. They ran out of money. They were really good at the data science part. They were really, really good at building the marketplace. They figured out all of the crap that was associated with the business. And they had this like beautiful, beautiful case study. But what they weren't good at they weren't good at the sales. They weren't good at the branding. They weren't good at the marketing.
Which is very normal.
Very normal. Yeah. Very normal. And they also weren't good at the fundraising part of it.
Right.
Right. And all of these things are all collectively very hard.
Yes.
So when he came to me with this, I'm like, wow, this is the holy grail. And I knew it. At the time, we had I say we had less than $100,000 in the bank. Probably we had like $10,000 in the bank. As a matter of fact, George, who's our head of product, him and I got in a big fight. He goes, dude, you're fucking crazy. Excuse my language. He goes, you're crazy. We're not going to acquire a company.
This is an Irishman's podcast,
yes,
so you're
yes.
safe.
Good.
This is a safe zone.
I figured I figured we're in the cuddle zone right now. So, but he goes, you're crazy. We're going to acquire somebody. He goes, how are we going to pay payroll next week? Why don't we talk about that, right? So at the end of the day, we structured an acqui-hire with Zoombie. We acquired the company with no money up front.
But you had no choice.
Well, we not only had no choice. When I saw this, I was like, this is it. I just saw it and I loved it. And that argument that George and I had by the end of the phone call, he goes, you're right, this is special. So I kind of did a little bit of a mini roadshow within my existing investor environment, talked to my staff, talked to the team, and made sure everybody was on board with it. And we went through the process, and it was probably like a 6-month acquisition that we closed in 60 days because we're in dog year time as a startup. So we didn't have a lot of time to get too into the weeds on it. We just basically knew that we wanted to do it. And we acquired this asset literally a little bit more than 4 months ago. And we relaunched, rebranded, and restructured the entire system. And we just launched 45 days ago here in the States. And what we've seen in 45 very short days is some struggles, most definitely. But I can tell you that it not only is working, it's working better than we anticipated for several different reasons. But the bottom line is it's a performance marketplace. As a brand or a publisher, instead of being beholden to the cost of the real estate that Facebook says you have to pay this or Instagram says you have to pay this when you're using their paid tools, you're setting the cost of your own real estate in our marketplace. That's number one.
And by the way, you can be anyone, right? So I think a lot of people will be listening to this and thinking, oh, if you're an influencer, you have to have 1 million followers or fans.
Yeah.
But that's not the case with your platform.
No, that's a good point. So when you break down, like when you look at all the different risks, like there was risks associated with are influencers going to use it? And what is the criteria of an influencer using your product? The criteria from our perspective is if they're making money, they're going to figure out how to play with it and how to use it and how to engage with it because they're making money. So the first question is the marketplace going to balance enough content that's paid content over here with the amount of influencers that we have on the platform over here to yield? Our number was like, we want influencers to make somewhere between $400 to $700 a month. Beautiful. Easy money, right?
And how many followers would one of those influencers potentially have? I know you can't be exact.
Well, it doesn't. Well, the beautiful thing is that doesn't matter. And I'll explain it to you why. What matters is the relevancy of the influencer's page, the contextual alignment of the content that the influencer is syndicating on their page. Those are the two variables. And then the velocity, and the other is the quality of the content. So I'll give you an example. We have an influencer on our platform. She's going to make $1,200 her first month on the platform. She's got 2,800 fans on Facebook. That's nothing, right? Not like your wife who has 1.7 million from a far cry, right? I think it would be, I understand she has 1.7 million, but 2,800 fans.
Nothing.
Now, why is she going to make so much money on our platform? Well, I'll tell you. First of all, the content that we syndicated on her page was astrology-driven content from our publisher who's paying us a certain cost per click, right? That's number one. Number two is...
And her fans like that.
Her fans liked it, and Facebook understands that her fans like it.
Right.
So what we have now is we have the predefined cost per click already assigned to the piece of content.
So if you had if you had TechCrunch, and TechCrunch were like doing content, you'd say, hey, Brian, we should do this on your page because TechCrunch, it's early stage entrepreneurship. Your fans are all early stage entrepreneurs. There's going to be a very direct fit, right?
Yes.
And I would be more likely to make good money on that than something.
It's contextually relevant, number one. And number two is if the content is high quality or high velocity content, which means people, when they read it, they like it. Facebook also looks at that. Then Facebook is going to give your ad unit relevancy. Okay. So what we have is we have this organic push out to her audience. Facebook goes, oh, this is relevant. We like this. And now you're saying, we already know what the cost per click is right here. It's already set. It's already predefined. We can put paid algorithmically through this content, through the business manager tools, or through her page, which is the way we go about doing it. And we know that if we're producing clicks at a number that's less than what our client is willing to pay us, which every single time something picks up velocity is going to be less by like between 50 to 150%, then we now have a little gold pot. And I hate to use the word arbitrage, but there's an arbitrage variable there. So if we're producing clicks at 8 cents a pop and we know we're getting at 25 cents a pop, Now we have this environment where somebody that's a small influencer that has contextually relevant content on their page is going to make real money. So that little finding we figured out in the last 45 days, that finding is so important because it ensures that we're putting money in Uncle Facebook's pocket. It ensures that we're putting money in cousin Instagram's pocket, right? Because we're now spending paid. We're not just eating their lunch. We're putting paid into their pockets. Number two is ensures that any influencer on our platform, as long as you have a fan page, you're going to be able to make money on our platform. And that to me now opens up a whole nother world because you don't have to be this big, bad influencer with 1 million+ fans doing all this different stuff. You can be a 14-year-old kid in another country. As long as you have a fan page and you're actively engaging on your fan page, you're going to make a few $100 a month on our platform. That is why our platform is very scalable. Not just because we're here and we have something that works. It's because anybody that has a fan page will make money. And the ripple effect is that scale now has, there's a viral component to that. We don't have to figure out how to acquire influencers. As a matter of fact, right now we're closed beta. The only influencers that are on our platform are influencers that we've actually said, hey, come on to our platform. Getting influencers on the platform is no longer going to be a problem because who doesn't want an extra $500, $700 a month? As an influencer.
So would you get me or would you get Expert Dojo?
We would get both. We would want both.
Because I'm thinking about this.
I
would actually want Expert Dojo because you're giving me more content to put out to my people.
Yeah.
And most folks, like if it's a business, especially a relatively small following business, under 10,000 folks, we'll say, that are following you, then most of us, we want good content that we can continue sending out to those people because more people are going to get engaged.
Yes.
It has a double effect. Like one, we make a little bit of money, which hey, there's nothing wrong with a couple of $100 a month, a couple of very nice dinners. Thank you very much for doing nada.
Yeah. So like if you and I were on the platform here, we could have shared a few pieces of content here and we would have made money based off of whatever the performance of those pieces of content are. And there's that organic push initially. And then behind, and then behind the scenes on that organic push is, oh, hey, this is working. Let's boost this. Let's put some paid behind this because we know what we're getting, and we know what the influencer needs to make. And then as far as a revenue model is concerned, it's like the simplest revenue model. It's 50-50. We do a 50-50 split with the influencers.
Beautiful.
But we reimburse ourselves any paid that we put behind
first,
the content.
Of course,
right?
and you should do. And like, would we care? No, because we're getting access to people for free.
Yeah.
Forget about the revenue share, the other kind of stuff. If you're paying to boost my content to folks that wouldn't have normally seen it, and the content is relevant content that looks good to them, I would take that all day long. I actually think 50-50 is very generous.
Yeah, no, we like it. You know, we're going to play with more aggressive splits towards us, and it becomes harder to explain, right? And then you start having like the more variables in the explanation when you're dealing with an influencer, or a lot of times when you're dealing with that influencer's management, the harder it is to structure the deal because it's very different. But I can tell you this, that the one thing that is, you know, first of all, if you look at like the two no-nos as far as starting a company, marketing tech is inherently very, very hard. Most financing, venture financing in that world, they're saying, hey, marketing tech, oh, we don't do marketing tech, first of all. And the only thing that's more challenging than marketing tech is influencer marketing. So we were lucky enough to position ourselves right in the middle.
Because they're so flaky.
Yeah.
But you're not influencer marketing. You are using, you almost want to put a different term. You're using the influence of real people.
Yes.
That have got real, because I don't want to be mean to influencers, but we tried it here, the big guys.
Yep.
We tried to bring them in here before. Man, it's so hard to get them to wake up in the morning and just to turn up. And people do, they say, yeah man, I got 900,000 followers. And they just don't turn up because they went to some free party. And we know that most of the influencers there are poor anyway, and they should do this, but they're not business people. What I love about what you're doing is you are democratizing. Number one, for brands, you're giving us contextual relevancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know my stuff is going out and other people are posting things, so my fans are being kept happy. Number two, you give me some money. I'll take that all day long. But actually, for normal folk, you are democratizing the entire money-making scale.
It's a gig economy.
You're taking it the next level to Uber. Uber, Lyft, they started.
Look at I mean, we don't look at Cameo as a competitor, but if you look at what happened with Cameo, if somebody would have told you a couple years ago that, hey, celebrities are going to be willing to do a 30-second cameo for $500 to $1,000, a little video.
Right? No way.
People would say you're crazy, but that money actually matters to them. Right? So I can have the most interesting man in the world do a 30-second video on Cameo for you and send you a picture. I've sent you a video.
And they didn't see it as even money in a lot of cases. Like they just saw it as a way that they continue to get themselves out in front of their fans. And
That's
Cameo
exactly
grew
right.
to be so big,
Mhm.
suddenly you got millions of people looking at Alex Baldwin doing a funny birthday card.
Or the most interesting man in the world saying some sort of funny shout out for your kid's birthday or whatever. But so from our perspective, when you look at influencer marketing, let's talk about all the things that are, and by the way, that was a really good point. We don't look at ourselves as an influencer marketing company. We're not a platform. We're not some sort of a search tool that's going to help you find influencers. Brands and publishers use us as a channel, the same way they use Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram as a channel. That's the way brands and publishers are using us. And if you think about it, what's wrong with influencer marketing today? What's wrong? Well, you got to find the influencers. Then you got to structure your deal with them. And then you got to send them product. Then you got to wait. Then they got to post it. Then after all that crap is done, you got to wonder if it actually worked. Did it work? Attribution sucks with influencer marketing. And now if you say, and that's on the brand and publisher side, or that's on the brand side, let's say. But on the influencer side, what's wrong with influencer marketing? Well, they got to find deals and they got to create content. They got to get out of bed and they got to go do something and create a video and they got to get paid and they got to deal with their management. And they got to find the right brand and they got to make sure it's done correctly. Those two problems inherently create a ton of operational burden if you're in the influencer marketing game. That means creativity and subjectivity go hand in hand. And if you have creativity and subjectivity as a part of your business model, you also have several different variables here to support that part of the business model.
Yeah.
And that means you are operationally burdened, which means you are scale burdened with respect to influencer marketing. On our platform, there is no finding influencers. There is no contracting with influencers. There is no paying influencers. There's no waiting for them to post. There's no subjectivity or creativity as far as what the influencers are going to create. The only subjectivity and creativity is the persona and the text that the influencers are going to write associated with your piece of content that they're syndicated. That's it. And now we start talking about how influencers have best practices on our platform to make sure that the content that they're syndicating gets really good engagement. It's in their best interest to do that. Now, on the influencer side, you scroll, you like something, you click, you share, you're done with it, right? So you don't have to create anything. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is be able to put together a couple of cool, compelling sentences with maybe some cute emojis or something like that, push it out to your audience, and you're getting paid. When you talk about what's wrong with influencer marketing, everything. But when you talk about everything from, okay, it's all screwed up, but people don't care. Between 2019 and 2020, spend on social and influencer marketing almost doubled. So even though there's all of these problems with influencer marketing, brands are still saying we want it. And oh yeah, by the way, you have baked into these costs of influencers, you have this hypothetical reach. What is it? 18% of audiences on Instagram are bot traffic. And Instagram says, yeah, this is it. We can't help it. This is part of our economy. So I'm an influencer charging you $5,000. And then you get some report from an agency that says, hey, we got you 72 million impressions or whatever this crap is. It's like, what does that really mean? It doesn't mean anything. On our platform, it's performance driven.
And they're real people. Because,
they're real people.
Because they're the fans of folks like me. There's no bots following Brian McMahon. There's no bots following Expert Dojo. Our folks who are there are folks that we know and folks who are engaged with us.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And by the way, for everybody outside, a bot is
it's just, you have these environments on Instagram where you can have people auto follow you and unfollow you. And then you have accounts that are set up that are managed by technology.
It's not a real person.
It's not a real person. So you'll notice it. Like, for example, if you look at somebody's page and you look at the comments, you'll see like just a smiley face in the comments, or like a wink or a point, or just like a
how are you?
Yeah, how are you? Just something silly.
The only thing that's real is that it's real useless.
Yeah, it's real useless. Well, it's set up. What it is it's set up to artificially increase your following. Right. So the idea is if I follow
Which, by the way, I hate it so much. I remember there was one investor that came up here, and I remember looking at their platform, and they had 100,000 or 150,000 followers, and it's so stupid because you can now tell. Like in Twitter, you can do a search. I was like, 2,000 real followers.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
That's an inherent problem. And I'll tell you something funny. And I think you asked me this, but the question was, well, if we have to use the handshake tool that Facebook requires, now people can see this syndicated piece of content on the influencer's feed, and instantaneously they know that the influencer is getting paid for that partnership, right? So the question is like, does that diminish the value of the piece of content getting syndicated? And the answer is no. it increases the value because the person knows that you're being honest. Consumers
I agree.
are not stupid today.
Yeah.
The influencer economy is so saturated with people doing quote unquote organic posts. You have to have had your head buried under a rock for the last 5 years. If I see some influencer with 1 million fans with a vitamin protein shake saying this is the best stuff ever, for you to really think that that is what they genuinely think about that product, right? So if you think about that fundamentally broken relationship and you're saying, hey, we're actually going through the API, doing it correctly, going through the branded tools, through Facebook's API, that actually tells you that, you know what, I know that this person's getting paid and it's compliant, but from my perspective, it actually makes the quality of the engagement better. It doesn't hurt it.
So I want to go back before we go forward. And by the way, all of you all listening should be real clear right now. What's the size of the market? Well, it's everybody, because we all have Facebook pages or Instagram pages. What is the potential for people to be able to share with their fans? Well, it's everybody, because I don't know many people, from my 12-year-old son all the way to all my buddies, who don't want a couple of $100 extra every single month. If it's going okay, if it's going bad, my kid's still going to make like $50. So this is a way, actually, could eradicate poverty. If we take this to the level that it could really go to, like it is insane.
Yeah, so we have a charity called Orphan Starfish Foundation, and the founder of that charity, a gentleman by the name of Andy Stein, really good friend, and they are in 29 countries. We've helped over 15,000 kids over the last 15 years, and we build computer centers, and we equip these computer centers with equipment and teachers for life, right? And the kids that come through this charity, through the organizations, through the orphanages, when they get out, they are going on to be doctors and lawyers and husbands and wives and successful parts of the community. It's a really, really special organization. So a couple years ago, we had brought the organization over to the West Coast technology community. They had a yearly gala in New York, and my wife and I went to Colombia. We visited a couple of the orphanages in Colombia. We literally just fell in love with it, and we started doing yearly fundraisers here in Los Angeles. So a couple weeks ago, I talked to Annie. I said, hey, we can set up an environment as long as the kids are 14 years old, or we can train the kids on how to create a digital presence online. Number one. Number two is we can create an environment where these kids are making $200 to $400 a month in passive income. And what brand or publisher is going to want their content syndicated across this kid who's coming from a very, very unfortunate upbringing, but who's now getting to a point where they're creating something for themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win all the way across the board. So we just have structured the very beginnings of that relationship. But exactly what you said, from a user's perspective, anybody that has a fan page that's on Facebook, as long as they're engaging authentically, they're going to make money on our platform.
Yeah.
Period.
It's the perfect, as they used to say back in the discos in Ireland, it's the perfect matchmaking.
Yes, it's the perfect matchmaking. It's a perfect, and I'll tell you the other thing though. But now we're talking about on the users, on the brand side. If you talk about, because we need clients.
They need loyalty.
Yeah.
So no, the brand side is even more of a no-brainer, because right now the brand are just marketing to folks where there's no loyalty, and you pay the most and they pay as much money as they can, and they get out to people and people click, and if they pay more money, more people will click, and if they pay less money, less people are going to click. And it's a non-loyal universe. The problem is, as soon as you stop spending money, it's over.
Yep.
So by getting engaged with the real fan base, so if I am, for example, talking about how high heel shoes are really bad for ankles, and how this high heel shoes actually will turn into a smaller heel and it will go down and it will allow women to be comfortable. And I start doing articles on women being comfortable, and it's focused on someone who's a woman who's got 3,000 fans, but all of her fans are other women who all like being stylish and they all like being beautiful, but they all don't like being friggin' miserable and uncomfortable all of the time. Like, that content is engaging and it's good. And what happens with the brand is, they start getting users who become their fans. And that's why it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And by the way, that's probably
Am I wrong?
That's a perfect description. So I can tell you what we saw. The cherry on the whipped cream when we acquired Zumbi was we looked at the use case, and one of the clients that we had the use case for, we still had their Google Analytics, okay? And they stiffed us on the bill. And note to self, don't launch a startup in Latin America and give people terms.
Yeah.
Whole nother situation. But
good advice, though.
We looked at this and we said, wow, we stopped marketing here. You could see when we started, they went from 250,000 users a month to 1.2 million users a month with our platform. Now, that is, okay, well, how much did they spend? But what happened was, is after we stopped, they sustained at just under 500,000 users a month. Okay, so there was a sustained lift associated with
Am I right
that you
or
could
am I
attribute
right?
to us, right? So that means that we were sending contextually relevant people to their site, and the people that went there, they cared. And then we looked at the page sessions and the time on site, and the traffic that we sent was 25% longer on site than their existing traffic sets. So when I saw that, I'm like, I come from an e-commerce conversion background. That was what Trendy was. I'm like, this is not normal. Like this, and they did their beta test. They drove millions of unique clicks in their beta test, right? I'm like, how did nobody just snap this up? Because that's the holy grail. Like when you look at it, the real IP of our product on the front side of it is the persona of the influencer and being able to take this piece of content in their voice and control that ecosystem. And then on the back side, the data science layer is all of these feeds that are on our platform. We are using contextual relevancy with the content, and what you see is a little bit different than what she sees, and that's going to be a little bit different than what he sees, right? So each feed has a different combination of things that kind of creep to the top. So that's the data science layer. And then what we're doing is we're analyzing the velocity, we're looking at the organic engagement of each piece of content, and then that is going to dictate where we put money behind, because we already know that we're getting this piece of money right here, and as long as we can produce this for this, then we want as much of that as we can get.
Okay, beautiful. So in the last 5 minutes, which is the most important 5 minutes of this podcast, I want to look to the future about what we are growing here. And we are speaking, we are no longer, I actually feel for the first portion of this podcast, we were talking to users because I just don't know why anybody wouldn't want to use this, right? Now we're talking specifically to investors.
Sure.
And we're talking to how do we grow this, over what period, how much money is needed to grow it. I want you to reflect, and there was a few things that really attracted me to you. A, your personality and who you are and what you are. I know you'll break through walls. I know you have the emotional intelligence to break through walls in the smart way. I know you have the integrity to take care of people around you. For me and Warren Buffett and everybody else, those three characteristics are everything, right? But as we spoke and we looked more into your background as well, it certainly was a boost when I saw that your last company, you drove the revenue up to the levels you drove it to. So I think just bring reference to that as you're talking about the future and where Rad's going to go.
Well, sure. So, my last company, Trendy, it was a modest exit for starters. And there's lots of lessons from that company.
But I don't really specifically refer to the exit. You got an exit, which for me is a result.
Sure.
What I really care about is what you drove the revenue up to in that company, because that's the key.
Right.
Folks exit all day long.
Yeah, we were
and
doing low 8 figures a year in revenue in less than 3 years. We were not just successfully operating, but you learn so much when you go through a hyper growth period. As a founder, CEO of a company, you not only learn, you also learn about toxicity in a relationship. You learn how to keep people accountable. And at the end of the day, the things that are good, you can certainly celebrate those things. And also the things that are bad, you can look back on the things and the environment that you created around you, and you can say, I don't have anybody to point the finger at other than myself. And you can look at the things that went wrong. You can look at the relationships that went sour. You can look at these mistakes that you made. And the second that you are pointing the finger inward versus pointing the finger outward, you can start to learn from those.
Yeah, and you've grown to the next level.
Of course.
But
Yes.
all of that, and I understand, having done startups before that, you learn a lot of things from it. I don't even care, like the fact that you did 8 figures in revenue by year 3. And by the way, an extremely difficult space. The space you're in, the last company.
It hardened
Man,
us up.
I have people come to me. Last week I was in Korea and I walked through all of these different stalls looking for these amazing startups.
Yeah.
And I had a startup pretty much doing exactly what you did before. And I spent about 5 seconds at that booth because it's such an impossible industry to work with.
It's a really hard space.
I just want to say you did 8 figures in an impossible space. In a short period of time,
our claim to fame was Stitch Fix was buying keywords on our page, on our Google page, which is kind of cool when they went public.
It's super legit.
So they looked at us as a competitor, which was funny because they were like a $4 billion company at the time. But even to that point, the things that we had to learn, because we were competing, we were like the fourth in the space. There was like Bombfell, Trunk Club, and Stitch Fix, and 5-4 Club. So we were like the fifth, number 5 in the space, and we had less money than everybody else. We had to be way more scrappy than everybody else. I had a really, really sharp technical co-founder, so that was really important. But the thing is like we all had to kind of get in there and just do shit. We had to get in there. We didn't trust outside agencies initially to run our Facebook. And then when we finally found somebody good, we knew they were good because we could hold them accountable. On the influencer side, we did most of that stuff ourselves for like the first few years because we just had to. We didn't have a choice because we didn't have a lot of money to throw at stuff. So all of that stuff is that stuff is like, okay, now I'm here. I'm starting Rad Intelligence in early 2018. And there's a different set of leadership skills associated with what Rad has, which is evident by the management team, by the people I've been able to recruit. My head of product was an investor in my last company. Rad's lead investors were also my previous company's lead investors.
Says a lot.
Our chief operating officer is the former CEO and founder of the company that we acquired.
Yeah, beautiful.
We have really amazing engineers. We have an amazing design and creative team. I'm very proud of the people that we have. And fundamentally, I know that these people will not be here unless the skill set that I took from my previous venture, the good, the bad, and everything in between existed. And the culture that we've created at Rad is a culture of healthy conflict. We encourage you to speak up. And if you're passive, you're not going to last in our environment. We have if it's on the table and it's there and it's something that's in the room, we root that shit out the second that it's there. And it's
Is this the one?
What's that?
Is this the one?
Oh, this is 100% the one. No doubt about it. If it's not the one, I'm going to be way too fat and way too bald afterwards. So it's got to be the one.
This is the one.
Yeah, this is the one.
I know. I could see it in your eyes.
No
from
doubt
the
about
first
it.
time we met. Like there's ones that are good ideas that you like, that you do. And that doesn't mean they can't be billion-dollar companies. They can still do fine.
Sure.
But then there's the one.
I believe that this is the one. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we just got accepted into Microsoft Startups, and we were on the phone with them the other day, and the guy goes, I actually think this is the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
And I said, why am I not recording this call?
Because you're going to hear it 100 times again.
But we believe that this is the one, and we don't only believe this is the one. We're seeing, so there's a closed loop of communication. At first, we had to make sure users are happy. Users are influencers. They're making enough money. Now that's happening. Now we have these clients that are over here that are paying us to be on the platform. Let's make sure they're happy. And that full circle of content, client happiness, meaning they're buying a second or a third time, and users making money on the platform and enjoying the process. So we've been able to, in 45 days of being live, prove that entire circle, meaning clients are buying, they're renewing, they're going through process to not just buy more, but they've actually restructured several parts of their digital offering to be more conducive for our platform, which I think is really important. On the user side, they're just happy as a clam and shit. Because these are influencers that actors and models and belly dancers where you're making an extra 500, 800 bucks.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
So, okay, all of that pulled together.
Yes.
How much are you raising and what's it going to do?
We're going to raise, we're raising $1.5 million.
Okay.
And the money is going to be, number one, stabilizing infrastructure, making sure that on the engineering side, we have part-time engineers that need to go over to full-time, stabilizing infrastructure on client operations. We've already narrowed scope, meaning we've gotten rid of all the different services-based business that we were doing to help pay the bills. So as a matter of fact, the month that we're in right now, December, is the first month that all of the revenue that is company related is platform revenue. So those are like meaningful steps for us. That's also a little bit scary because we don't have that cover of some service-based business that can help us pay the bills while we're getting from point A to point B.
Yeah, I get it.
So, but as it stands today, we're not even burning $60,000-$70,000 a month.
Beautiful.
And we have clients, and we just got 2 very meaningful IOs from some relevant, meaningful clients.
Beautiful.
So from our perspective, 1.5 takes us out at least 18 months. We already know what the environment is.
What should that do revenue-wise?
We're thinking we're going to do between $5 to $7 million in revenue next year.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, we're right now. I can look at the numbers and I can tell you it's that beginning of a hockey stick right now. Just this month, our largest client tripled their order.
Man, that's crazy.
Their second month with us, and they just gave us 6 new feeds. We're going up to visit them next week in San Francisco before the holiday. And we just signed 2 really meaningful deals, and the product is working. And the other interesting thing is like the reach. We have we have, because we have the power of these pages, plus we're using the Facebook algorithm to push out paid from these pages. There's just tons and tons of reach that we have through that. So we're super, super excited coming in.
Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. Number one, I happier than the clam, right? Have you guys with us. I love it. Part of the family. We're part of your family. We're going to make a lot of money together. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Number two, I'm going to give you the Expert Dojo page 100% the same way as I gave you my wife's page. Number three, we're going to start opening you up to other folks within the accelerator and outside as well. And number four, we're going to build something friggin' awesome.
Yes.
And people are going to look at this in 2 years' time. They're going to be like, hey, man, I think it's going to be successful. Well, obviously it's going to be successful because it already has been. So if you're an investor, you're a user, you're engaged in the space, whatever it's for, how can everybody contact you, Jeremy?
Jeremy.b@radintelligence.com, radintelligence.com. And I'd be happy to talk to any qualified investors, people that we're allergic to assholes. That's the only
just
that's
be
only
nice.
variable.
You know what? I'll finish the podcast with this because I really like that you've said that. And this is also, by the way, I always say with entrepreneurs, our investors just work with people who are who they are, not who pretend to be other things. And you spend a lot of your time wasting your entire life speaking to people who pretend to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
Rad Intelligence is a platform whose time has come now. You want to get in the round. We've already put our money where our mouth is. You can contact Jeremy. You can contact me. You can come around the dojo, but get engaged right now.
Awesome, man. Brian, much respect and love, and thank you.
With you, brother.
All right, cool.
That's a wrap.
Thanks for joining us. If you love the podcast, please empower your circle by sharing these stories. The Art of Startup War is brought to you by Expert Dojo. And remember, we invest in startups, $50,000 checks. Make sure you apply on our site if you are one of those great entrepreneurs looking to bring your company to the next level. As far as the Art of Startup War is concerned, we are back every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. So remember, check out the new episodes. If you want to find out what the investors think, check out season 1 or 2. But make sure you join us every single week.